Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of MANNA. I'm Dr. Turner, your host. A pleasure today and a unique opportunity to bring out a discussion regarding stem cells and particularly a product that you can use to actually enhance release of your own stem cells naturally. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could do something that would promote natural stem cell release? And wouldn't it offer an avenue of healing many different kinds of diseases and problems? And so we're going to take a deep dive into that topic today. Stem cells, what are they? Why are they important? How do they work? Where can we get some? What are some good avenues of doing that? And I feel really blessed to have on our show Christian Drapeau, who is the founder of a company called StemRegen. He's the founder and CEO, and he has a long background in stem cell research, which I'll read to you in just a second. But first of all, welcome, Christian, and glad to have you today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. Christian holds a degree in neurophysiology from McGill University, and he's the author of several scientific articles in the fields of leptogenesis and stem cell research. He created a new therapeutic approach called endogenous stem cell mobilization, which I'll look forward to hearing more about that. Sounds phenomenal. And he is also the author of the best-selling book, Cracking the Stem Cell Code. Again, also a fetching title. He created the concept of stem cell enhancement and developed the first plant-based product supporting the role of stem cells in the body. He's the founder and CEO for StemRegen. Phenomenal. Thank you, Christian. Excited to do this. Let's start here. Let's start with, if you can educate our audience, what are stem cells and why should people care? Let's start with that question.
I found that the best way to explain what a stem cell is to start by explaining what is not a stem cell. So every single cell of the body, they're called somatic cells, and they're cells that will have one specific function. They will never transform into something else, and they will never multiply. They will basically be just the cell that they are. So you think of a cell of the retina, it responds to light, that's all that it does. A cell of your muscle will contract, that's all that it does. So at the other end of the spectrum, you have stem cells. Stem cells don't have an actual function as a stem cell. Their function is in reality is their ability to transform into other types of cells. So historically, they were known to be precursors to blood cells, white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. And the real discovery in the early 2000s that kind of started what today is the whole field of stem cell research and stem cell therapy is the discovery that stem cells from the bone marrow, not only they can become blood cells, but they can actually become cells of pretty much anything else in the body. So they're the repair system.
Phenomenal. Tell us about your own history here with stem cells. I know you've been in the field for quite a while and have been pioneering in many respects. What was your interest and sort of your personal story with all this?
So my way into stem cell research, which really follows sort of the normal normal path of scientific investigation. So I was working with a plant at the time, blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. You may have heard of the product. It's been used for 40, 50 years. And I was hired in 1995 to document the mechanisms of action behind that plant. Like, why was it bringing people benefits with inflammation, with the immune system? And most people were talking about an enhancement of mental clarity, mental energy. So we very quickly identified the active compounds behind those benefits. But along the way in this investigation, I came across people who reversed multiple sclerosis, insulin-dependent diabetes, severe heart disease, emphysema, Parkinson, Alzheimer's. And at first it's, 10 cases, 20, but when it gets to about 100 cases, some of them I could see their medical records. There's a point where it became compelling. Like, this product was doing something that was quite unusual, and we could not explain it. If it was real, we could not explain it. And there's a point, it was so compelling that I had to dig and find what it was doing. And we did this for a few years. And it's when I came across a paper in 2001, early 2001, to my knowledge, the first article documenting stem cells going from the bone marrow, going to the brain and becoming a brain cell. So we go back in 2001, and as I said before, stem cells have been known. Everybody in med school, probably to this day, you were probably told the same thing in med school. Stem cells, their role is to become blood cells. So to observe that a stem cell can become a brain cell, I thought was like amazing. So
Really.
I went into the local medical library. I started to dig and to see what else I could find on that topic. I found one other article documenting stem cells becoming liver cells, going to the liver and becoming liver cell, and another one, the same thing about the heart. So I just thought, so let's go back to 2001.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all of this, and I'm just thinking, if stem cells can become heart, liver, and brain, why not pancreas, lung, skin, and the rest? It makes
Hmm.
no sense. Like there's no physiological phenomenon that you can think of that would apply to liver, heart, and brain and not the rest. So that
Right.
means it's just a matter of time. Scientists will show that stem cells can become everything. So let's assume they can become everything. How can you think of a stem cell being able to become brain, heart, and liver, and it's not their function? You know, it
Hmm.
has to be their function. So that means they have to be the repair system of the body. So we published an article in a journal, Medical Hypotheses, suggesting stem cells are the repair system of the body. And in the back of my mind, the question was, what if that plant, just like we have many plants known to stimulate the immune system, what if that plant was stimulating the repair system by putting more stem cells in circulation? At the time, it was a wild idea, but we bought a flow cytometer to count stem cells and very quickly discovered that this is how this plant was working. So everything that I did kind of shifted into the field of stem cell research, and that's what I've done since that
Hmm.
day.
Hmm. Yeah, phenomenal. So the idea, as you said, that cells can be released from our own bone marrow, can go anywhere in the body, transform themselves into a completely different cell, and repair whatever needs to be repaired on demand, as needed, as directed internally by the body. This is a true concept. Yeah.
Not only it's a true concept, but I mean, just take a step back here. Anybody listening to our discussion right now has had an injury in their lives, has
Hmm.
broken a bone, a cut, a bruise, whatever it is. We've all had these things. You're cutting vegetables and suddenly you cut your finger a little bit. It
Yeah.
healed. So how is this process taking place? You have an accident, whatever it is, you recover. What is
Hmm.
the process behind this recovery? In medicine, there's a big black hole. There's no language around what happens when you heal. You have a broken bone, the doctor will put you in a cast and will say, come back in 6 weeks. What is happening during those 6 weeks? We know that we repair, but the
Hmm.
process is almost like a black hole. Nobody explained to you in your medical class
Hmm.
how the
Hmm.
body repairs.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in my days, they would say, which is probably close to your days, maybe a little bit before, but the immune system will repair. But explain to me which part of the immune system is responsible for repair. It's not an NK cell, it's not a B cell, it's not a T cell. So what we're discovering is that it's your stem cells.
Hmm.
So it's opening a whole new understanding on how we can help the body repair from any kind of damage, speaking broadly.
Sure. Now, we all have a certain amount of stem cells. What happens as we age, number one? And then also, are there other factors that will influence whether for pro or con against the numbers of healthy stem cells that an individual might have?
Yeah, we're born with a lot of stem cells. Well, let's put it this way. We're born with red marrow in all of our bones, but the red marrow kind of converts very quickly in fatty marrow, yellow marrow that does not make stem cells. By age 30, we've lost almost 90% of our red marrow, and it keeps going down. So by
Mm.
age 30, we've lost almost 90% of our stem cells, and the number of stem cells in circulation has declined by about 90%. So that is
Mm.
right there one of the main driver of aging and driver of the development of age-related diseases. We can come back to that later. But what is it that can do today? Because today, wherever we are, in our lives, the number of stem cells we have in our blood will dictate our ability to repair if we have something broken, an injury or a disease process, and it will also dictate how long I can keep the health that I have today for the decades to come. So it
Mhm.
really determines our health. So how many stem cells I have in my bloodstream today. To change the number of stem cells in your bloodstream, aside from some of the plant extract that I just talked about and I have studied over the years, intense physical activity will put more stem cells in circulation. I mean, like something that is going to create micro damages in your muscle, running a marathon, doing something fairly significant.
Mm.
Fasting for more than 3 days will put more stem cells in circulation. These are about the only two that are known to put more stem cells in circulation. Things that we can do that will negate or diminish the role of our stem cells: cigarette smoking, drinking, stress, All three will do the same thing. They suppress stem cells' ability to migrate into tissue and proliferate. If we have systemic inflammation in the body, it's going to reduce the ability of stem cells to be able to identify where to go in the body. They're sort of more lost, if you want, when they're in your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to have poor blood circulation, like for example, diabetics don't repair very well because they have poor microcirculation. So you get poor delivery of these stem cells. So you get poor ability to repair. So these are like the elements that can play in someone's ability to repair on the basis of their stem cells.
Right, right. So I hear you saying it. You need to have a low level of inflammation, a good level of circulation, be avoiding some of the things you mentioned: cigarette smoking, alcohol, chronic stress. Those are all lifestyle factors that we have control over.
Correct.
Or stem cells. Okay. Um, where do you feel like stem cells show the most promise currently in, there's, as with any scientific research, some aspects or applications are well developed, some are still more novel and theoretical. Where do you see stem cells as very well developed in terms of what they can bring to the average person?
I mean, honestly, I think a
Mm-hmm.
product like StemRegen is where things have been well developed.
Mm-hmm.
There's the application of certain stem cells, like umbilical cord stem cells, fat stem cells. The only reason why I will put a little bit of a caveat on this is that science is moving fairly fast on this. And
Yeah.
there's another kind of stem cells that has been isolated and identified in the human body that has huge potential. They
Hmm.
are essentially, they have a behavior or capacity that are comparable to embryonic stem cells without the negative of embryonic stem cells. They're
Right.
extremely potent. They can become everything, even oocytes and spermatozoa. So extremely, extremely pluripotent and powerful. But
Right.
they are found in very small amount, in very specific niche in the body. And at this point, although studies are moving on, the systems and the methods to go and isolate them and grow them in order to be able to turn that into a therapeutic use is not fully there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in the whole world of stem cell application, I think that the future of stem cells is going to be more in with those stem cells
Mm.
because because you don't need to rely on umbilical cord stem cells. The reason why we do umbilical cord is because our fat stem cells, bone marrow stem cells are older, but it's not the case with these stem cells. These other stem cells do not age in the same way, and they retain their pluripotency. So to me, a lot of the future is in those kinds of cells.
Wow. Where are those cells found?
You find like there are different types of them in the bone marrow, in the blood. Some of
Oh,
them will
okay.
be found in muscles and tendons, in connective tissues.
Mm.
They're almost like dormant until you go. So
Mm.
they're very enduring to stress. Also, they're called stress enduring,
Mm.
and so they stay dormant there. And there's a way to go and collect them and activate them. And so,
Mm.
being like a dormant stem cell, it does not age at the same rate, if you want, as the overall body.
I see. I see. Now, in the introduction, we mentioned that you wrote a best-selling book, Cracking the Stem Cell Code. Do you want to highlight for us what are some of the main intriguing points that you brought out in that book? People might want to go purchase it, of course. Or what would you say are the summary statements
Well,
there?
what I wanted to do with this book, which at the time, to a large extent still today, but at the time, what I'm talking about in this book was not talked about anywhere else.
Mm.
Meaning, for anybody, and I mean, it's still largely true for a lot of the people. If we say stem cells, it's a treatment. It's a place where you go, you get a stem cell injection if you can pay for it. And as you leave the clinic, the stem cells that were just injected to you, they are the one that really matter in your life. Like they're the only one that you know about. And in
Mm.
reality, these stem cells can come from your bone marrow, from your blood, from your fat tissue. So they're in your body to begin with. They're not better because we take them out and put them back in. So what are they doing in your body? They're already there. So the
Mm.
book was really aimed at explaining what is a stem cell, what is the role of stem cells in your body, and how can you leverage the stem cells that are already in your body? Because at the end of the day, we look at stem cell discovery from the place of novelty. And what we need to realize is that they've been there all along for tens of thousands of years. As long as we were in evolution, they're there in your body. It's just
Mm.
our observation of them that is new. And there's a lot of things that we know in medicine that affect stem cells. We just did not know they were there. So we did not know that the mechanism of action was through stem cells. Anything that you will do that will enhance repair has to act in some way through stem cells because they are the repair system.
Mhm.
So the book was meant to really document that. What are stem
Ah,
cells? What is their role in the body?
yes, yes. Phenomenal. Well, speaking of, you mentioned some of the ways that people try to access stem cells. So let's say, Joe or Sally Public hears about stem cells. Maybe they need a hip replacement, and they're thinking, if I had some stem cells, I could grow some new cartilage in my hip. And they go to some clinic, sometimes overseas, not even in the U.S., right? And they get an injection of these stem cells. Where are those stem cells coming from, first of all, and how many are injected? What's the nature of that procedure?
Well, historically, let's say 5, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
these stem cells would come essentially from your bone marrow, from your blood, from your fat tissue. So they were your own stem cells. The problem, it's not a problem. The reality with these is that these stem cells are a little bit older because when you need a hip replacement surgery, you're
Mm-hmm.
not 20 years old. So you have
Mm-hmm.
reached a time when your stem cells have aged, and an older stem cell is not as effective as a younger stem cell. This being said, we have studies with compounds that trigger the release of our own stem cells, like the one that I talked about before. We have studies where we have documented the reversal of severe heart disease, for example, in
Mm-hmm.
people who are like 65 to 75 years old. So, this idea that your stem cells are older, therefore they're not working, I think is really a deep, deep misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as good as they were when you were 10, but we are not running as fast as when we were 20. That does not make us irrelevant. So they can still do their job.
Mm-hmm.
But in this quest of getting younger and younger stem cells, umbilical cord stem cells have grown in popularity, in the networks to collect them, the science around them. So now a lot of the clinics will actually use umbilical cord stem cells because it's also not as dirty. By dirty, I mean like the process of going into your bone marrow, doing a bone marrow aspirate, taking a blood sample, splitting these stem cells. It's so much easier. You buy a little vial. Your profit margin is much better. Your problems are much less. It's much easier for the doctor. So it has grown extremely in popularities over the past few years. So right
Mm-hmm.
now, I would say a lot of the time it's just umbilical cord stem cells,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the injection will be, I mean, it will be between 100 to 200 million, but the not the problem, the reality with that statement is that it really depends how many rounds of multiplication you have done. Let's say you isolate 500,000 stem cells, which is about the number of stem cells that you have in a cord blood. And if you do two multiplication, so one multiplication you're at 1 million, another one you're at 2 million, 4 million, 8 million. You can bring them like this to 100 million. But are they, if you now continue to bring it to 200 million, do you really have more, or you've just reduced the number of division that they can do in your body? So at the end of the day, you want to have a lot of stem cells, but you want them to be not have gone through more than 3, 4 passes. So at the end of the day, you need that kind of information, and that's what you pay for. When you go to a place where it seems like it's a fraction of the cost of these expensive places, and they're
Mm-hmm.
telling you, no, we're going to give you 180 million stem cells just like the other places, it
Mm-hmm.
really depends what you're getting. If you're getting a small number that has been expended to a lot, you're not getting
Right.
the same kind of quality of an injection. So it's like
Right.
anywhere else. I think you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how expensive this is if someone were to go to one of these quality stem cell institutes and get a shot?
I mean, if you go and you aim for like a really good
Mm.
quality injection, I mean, you need to be ready to pay anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000
Wow. Just for one injection.
for one injection.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if
then,
you do more than one, there could be like packages.
hmm hmm
I've never done it. I'm just
right.
talking. I've just heard a lot of people who have done it.
Right.
I've know some of these clinics. That's roughly in the kind of price range. You can get cheaper injections here in the U.S., but the problem is just that the FDA is kind of trying to control this industry. It's not controlled yet, so a lot of people can do sort of what they want, but being afraid of really moving forward, afraid of future enforcement that could be there.
Mhm.
At times, people tell you that you're getting stem cells. They're not really stem cells. They are exosomes or they're platelets, and like at the end of the day, it's not clear what you're getting. You need to do a good research to know that you're really getting what you're paying for.
I see.
But it exists. There are good clinics.
Okay. And in the US, are we able to use umbilical stem cells in certain clinics?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can do that. It is possible, but there's a pressure to
Mm-hmm.
try to make it more difficult.
I see.
So I know clinics who are doing it. They're doing a really good job,
Right.
and they are constantly uh, looked at, audited
Mm.
for. Yeah, it's not an easy process. So a lot of people do it without really promoting it. That's what makes it a little bit more delicate and difficult.
Sure. Right. So my dream then from the patient's viewpoint would be, is there some alternative to spending ten to $20,000 doing a bunch of research, going somewhere? Is there some alternative to create stem cell concentrations that will stimulate healing and repair in our body, right? And this leads us to what I think is truly the magic and the value and the insight of your product, which is you claim that it can. So
Mhm.
tell us more. How would you stack up your product? What can it do? What kind of numbers? What kind of response? Uh,
Well, we're doing a study right now on congestive heart failure where we have a group on StemRegen, one group on adipose stem cell injection, and another one with combination of both to study essentially two things: how StemRegen compares to stem cell injection and how much better are the results when we combine them together, because we have seen a synergy of both together.
mm,
Right now, the study is ongoing. We're getting like I just finished a preliminary report. We'll put that into the scientific literature. But in summary, out of 10 patients now that have gone through the process, 10 out of 10 have normal heart function after 6 months. So
mm,
they started with ejection fraction around an average of 43, and 6 months later, they all have an ejection fraction above 50.
mm,
Uh, so so we're not done here, the comparison with the other modalities, but I would say the best way to explain what we have is that you take 2 capsules of StemRegen, you will release about 10 million of your own stem cells. So if you do this every day for a month, you have released 300 million of your own stem cells. So cumulatively over time, you're really giving your body its own ability to repair. It's really, we do nothing more than this. When we did a study on the heart, it is not to make a claim that the product can be good for heart disease. It's really to make the claim that this product puts more of your own stem cells in circulation, and to see what this could mean in terms of tissue repair, see what it can do for the heart.
mm.
And we follow in this the scientific literature as to what has been documented the most in terms of a response from releasing our own stem cells, because there's a lot of data on this in the scientific literature. So that's really what the product does. You take 2 capsules and you release about 10 million of your own stem cells. On that day, your ability to repair is enhanced.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Phenomenal. And just to put a point on it for my audience, heart failure, the definition of heart failure is your heart is not squeezing enough. It's literally failing to pump sufficiently. It's a mortal condition, obviously, of great interest to cardiologists to try to help with heart failure, and difficult to treat when it gets very serious. There's a part of the volume in your ventricle, which is the main pumping chamber of your heart. You might think that your heart empties completely every time, but that's not true. There's some residual blood that's left behind, and then there's a percentage that is released and squeezed appropriately into circulation. The percentage that's released is called the ejection fraction. That's the fraction that's released. And what Christian has said is that you can take someone with an ejection fraction of the low 40s, 43% or something like that, and raise that to 50 or something. I think you said 53%.
Mhm.
So that's extraordinary. Their heart is literally beating more strongly and pumping out more blood. And that was just on the basis of StemRegen product alone.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And
So think.
we need to understand, as you know very well, the heart has been believed forever as part of traditional medicine to
Yeah.
not be an organ that repairs. You
Right.
grow until about 8, 10 years of age, and whatever the cells that you have in your heart, that's what you will have in your life. If you
Yeah.
lose cells, then too bad. There's nothing that you can do about it. That science has changed. There's a lot of data showing that the heart indeed constantly is a constant process of tissue turnover and repair. And it is driven to an
Wow.
extent by having more stem cells in circulation. So that's all that we do. We've put more stem cells in circulation, and they contribute to cardiac repair.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's phenomenal. Well, that would offer obviously application if someone's had a heart attack, which the definition of that is certain part of their heart muscle dies off. That their idea that perhaps the body could repair that with its innate stem cell mechanism would be extraordinary. I remember them actually researching that when I was at the Mayo Clinic. They were doing research about heart failure and post heart attack rehab concepts with stem cells. There was a lot of research going on back then, and I'm sure it's just accelerated. To bring to a conclusion and to understand your product a little bit more, I think the beauty of this is, number one, it's accessible to people, and number two, it's safe, right? It's plant-based. You're using just certain plant-based extracts that are already present in nature. You brought them together in a highly purified form. Can you tell us about that? What are the different ones? You mentioned blue-green algae initially, but I think what your company has done is they've researched sort of like all of the top ones and ones that are synergistic together, perhaps. But do you want to comment on the ingredients or the formulation of it?
Yeah, the moment that we identified that this blue-green algae was acting as a stem cell mobilizer, a stem cell releaser, then for me the next question was, okay, we evolved in symbiosis with the environment. Just like there are many plants stimulating the immune system, there has to be more than one plant stimulating the repair system. So how do we find these plants? I mean, it's a really simple question. You simply go in the literature and you look what else has been associated historically to a broad variety of health benefits. So you would think immediately medicinal mushroom, goji berry,
Yeah.
fucoidan from seaweeds, those adaptogens, those kinds of
Yes.
ginseng, those kinds of product. So we just went and we studied many of those. And at some point, in the process of these investigations, I came across people who were traveling into remote areas of the world like Madagascar. What are they doing in Madagascar? They don't have Chinese medicinal mushroom. They don't have goji berry. They have something that is endemic to Madagascar. So what are they using? And it happens that in Madagascar, it's one specific species of aloe. They have about 65 species of aloe, but there's one that they have used for centuries to make a product called Vahona, for all kinds of problems and to help older men in their 80s still working in the field.
Wow.
So we took extract from that plant, we started to study it, and we saw that it was so far the most effective plant at releasing stem cells. Sea buckthorn berry, used in Tibetan medicine, Chinese medicine, Mongolian medicine, for problems of the lung, of the heart, the cardiovascular system, diabetes, to speed up the repair from bone fracture, burn to the skin. So you see the spectrum here. It was telling
Yeah.
me it looks like maybe we have an effect on stem cells. So in that way, we studied the blue-green algae, sea buckthorn berry, aloe macroclada, panax neuroginseng, and fucoidan, which is a polysaccharide from seaweed. So these are the top 5 ingredients that we have in StemRegen that are making the product as it is today. And when your question is about safety, I think that this is the beauty of the product, because the moment we talk about stem cells, immediately there's a concern, cancer, this and whatnot. Like it's something that is like high tech. But in reality, these are all plants that have been used for centuries. They all have a long history of safety. Nothing has ever happened. Nothing has been associated over the past
Yeah.
2,000 years with people taking sea buckthorn berry.
Right.
So it's entirely safe. The only thing is that we realized that some of these plants are having an effect on stem cells. It was their mechanism of action. We did not know, but they're doing this effect on stem cells in different ways. So by blending these plants specifically together, we get a synergy that is giving us the output here that we see on heart function, for example. We have another study on Parkinson. We're preparing another one on emphysema, COPD, lung problems, one on colitis, liver failure. So we're moving on conditions for which historically we have seen a lot of benefits.
So for the patient who's very ill, needing a lot of repair in their body, as I recall, your recommended dose would be 2 capsules 3 times a day. That's what you use in the heart failure study, for example.
Correct. That's
Right.
what we use in all of our studies.
Okay. And what's the minimum amount of time that's needed to start to see or notice an effect from either the patient or clinician viewpoint?
It really depends. Let's take as an example. We're doing a heart study. We're also doing a Parkinson study based on a number of cases, but 2 specific cases that we have documented and published. These 2 cases, within about 3 to 6 weeks, had essentially reversed their condition. I'm talking about 13% ejection fraction to
Yeah.
48% ejection fraction in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We're talking about somebody
Wow.
unable to dress himself, to eat, to drive his car, obviously, within 6 weeks, almost resuming a normal life. These are not typical cases. So sharing these kinds of cases make people have an expectation that is a little bit unreasonable, if I want to say. But I'm mentioning them because we have seen those cases where in 3 to 4 weeks, people really start to see significant results. In our heart study, the progression was pretty much linear in all these 10 patients, meaning at 3 months, you got about 50% of the benefits that they had. And at 6 months, you see whatever we are now at 6 months. I would say if there is a significant amount of repair to do in the body, give yourself 3 months to see if really you see a difference. Give yourself 6 months to go to the full extent of the benefits that you could obtain.
Okay.
But some people will see it in a few weeks.
Okay. I'm taking some notes here, so I want to be able to advise patients correctly about that. I remember when we've met on several occasions, and after one of the conferences, you showed me video of the gentleman with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary what you showed me there, Christian. I wish everyone could see it, but yeah, the guy could hardly move, dress himself. His arm, the tremor was so bad he could not function. And then you showed me the after video, and the guy's feeding himself and putting on a shirt. And I mean, it was extraordinary.
Driving his car. Yeah.
Driving his car. Yeah. It was striking. Okay.
He was an exceptional case, but he's an example of very fast results. That was 6 weeks.
Yeah. And then I would conclude by saying, apart from the serious medical side where someone might need to be on 2 capsules 3 times a day, on for months, for someone, let's just say on the general health, longevity, anti-aging, is there any value to be on the product on an ongoing basis? Should it be reserved just for intermittent use? How do you see its role in
I
longevity?
mean, there's one part that we have not talked about that to me is probably like almost like the most important. And it's the
Oh,
fact that while stem cells play a crucial role in repair, when there's nothing broken in your body, they play an absolutely vital role in simply replacing the cells that are being lost. One thing that stem cell research has shown is that our general of understanding and experience of aging, we experience aging as a slow decline. Past 40 years
yeah.
of age, you start to decline like an old fence in your backyard. Like every year, it's a little bit less.
Right.
But it's not how aging is happening physiologically. Physiologically, everything is a balance between losing cells every day and replacing the cells that have been lost with stem cells. So every tissue has a turnover rate. So based on stem cell research, we can extrapolate, and I can tell you humans will have on average a new liver every 2 3 years, a new skin every month, half of a
Mhm.
new heart every 25 years, new lung 6 8 years. The number of years is not relevant. It's to
Mm.
understand that there's this turnover that is constantly taking place. But if your number of stem cells in circulation decline as you age, there's a point you don't have enough stem cells to offset that ongoing cellular loss. And there's a point where you start to accumulate a deficit in unrepaired damages, micro damages. But if
Yeah.
those unrepaired damages accumulate in your pancreas, well, it's diabetes down the road. If they accumulate in your heart, it's heart disease. In your lung, it's emphysema. In your brain, it's Parkinson, and so on. So in
Mhm.
2013, I published this hypothesis suggesting that the driver for the development of age-related disease was the decline in the number of circulating stem cells. And the way to test for this, go and count the number of stem cells in people who have developed various types of age-related disease, and let's compare that with healthy people. And there's about 50 of those studies published right now. And across the board, people who have developed these diseases all have on average 50% or less than what you find in healthy people of the same age. So,
Mhm.
so understanding that we develop problem out of very, very slow accumulation of damage, which if you could more effectively repair them every day, then they would not accumulate and would not lead to the problem down the road. So there is an anti-aging component, if you want, to your stem
Mm.
cells, and that's the daily input. So with a product like StemRegen, it's more effective than what I had done in the past. There's probably an argument to say you don't have to do this every day. Maybe do this for a month or two, a few times a year. If you release 10 million a day over a month, 300 million, it's
Mhm.
going to do a good amount of repair in your body. So as long as you do this, if you want, periodically, because you're aging and you have fewer and fewer stem cells. The
Mhm.
problem that is the day that you get a diagnosis, the problem did not start on that day. That's a
Yes.
20-year-old problem. It would
Right.
have been much better to start to take care of it before. That's sort of the general concept. If somebody is healthy to begin with, well, take it to stay healthy. I take it every day. but that's because I've been with it now for 20 years. I've seen all the stories associated with it. To me,
Yeah.
it's my sort of magic bullet to keep my
Yes.
health as I age. But
Of
I'm
course.
immersed into that.
Yes. Good. Of course. Good. Well, you stand by your product, and I respect that. Yeah. Take your own medicine. I have a bottle myself. I've got it in the cupboard, and on a hard workout day, I take some. Absolutely. I'm recovering from a minor surgery I had recently, and I'm like StemRegen came right
Mhm.
out on the shelf because I know it's doing some good things for me. Well, thank you, Christian. This has been a lovely conversation. I encourage my listeners to consider your book, Cracking the Stem Cell Code. Christian's the founder and CEO of StemRegen. You can look them up online. And also, we're going to feature their signature product on our website, and we'll make a very clear link for you to be involved with that for yourself. So thank you, Christian. Enjoyed our conversation. Look forward to working with your company in the future.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was a pleasure.
Of course.